right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard to the Sports Talk Nation. Michael Cohen back with you. We got a lot to discuss as we are playing a bit of catch-up right now. We discuss a lot here. We're going to talk about Aaron Glenn's press conference, the coaching staff that he is building, and yes, the story that is kind of hovering over all of this, and that's what are they going to do? The ever-present question when it comes to this franchise, what are they going to do with the quarterback position? Let's get right into it. Folks, welcome aboard here, Michael Cohen, Sports Talk Nation, as we continue our discussion here with Aaron Glenn. And one thing that was very apparent as both he and Darren Mougey were introduced to the world as the new head coach and the general manager of the New York Jets is this. As far as Aaron Glenn is concerned, you could see a lot of Bill Parcells and the way he came across. You also got a little bit of Herman Edwards, and you got a little bit of Rex Ryan as well in that press conference. And what do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to play some of the clips here for you, and we'll certainly discuss it. But as far as winning the press conference is concerned, absolutely, Aaron Glenn knocked that out of the park. And you can take winning the press conference as far as you probably could take it, because at the end of the day, it's all about winning ball games, and it's all about filling a really, really good staff and putting together a good football team that can win every single week. And let's be honest, does anybody really remember Robert Saleh's press conference, introductory press conference? Not really. Does anybody remember what Adam Gase said in his press conference? No, all we remember is him with his eyes bugging out of his head. So you take press conferences for what they are. Duval. But as far as winning it, well, it certainly stood out. Let's just take a look.
Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. Listen, there are going to be some challenges. But with challenges gets opportunity. But here's what I do know. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Obviously, when you hear the statement, buckle up the seatbelts and let's roll, we're the freaking New York Jets and we're built for this shit. When you hear that kind of stuff, obviously it echoes things that we've heard in the past. To me, when I heard that, it kind of reminded me a little bit of Rex Ryan with, we're not going to kiss the rings, or Robert Saleh's all gas, no break, or more infamously, as far as football fans are concerned, kind of reminds me of the whole let's ride thing that Russell Wilson did when he was in Denver. That didn't work out too well. Obviously, when you hear now the whole slogan for the Jets is buckle up your seatbelts. We're built for this. So that's the new slogan here for the Jets as far as Aaron Glenn is concerned. But the one thing that really stands out for me, aside from the catchy phrase, is this is a non-BS coach. He is clearly cut from the cloth of Bill Parcells, not just the way he speaks, but also in the way he acts and the way he describes how he wants to build this football team. And you get the sense he wants to build a tough-nosed football team that focuses not just on, it's not all about the quarterback, it's about the best players that can fit his system, the best players for the team. And that's something that obviously goes back to Parcells. He was he was all-round coach, didn't like having superstars at every position, wanted guys who were kind of lunch pail guys that would go out there and just focus in on exactly the task at hand and get the job done. That's what kind of led to the whole idea of Parcells guys, and certainly Aaron Glenn is that. And then a couple other things that I really enjoyed from this press conference. Let me play this clip.
In 98, we played the Denver Broncos. We're out there and we are winning 10-0 in the first half. We come back in the second half. They kick the ball off. Wayne, you remember this. It was windy. The ball stops midair. And they recover it. And they scored 2 touchdowns. I'll be damned if I'm not going to come back here and get that back.
In that clip, he is referencing that loss in the AFC Championship game back in 1998 and how that still burns inside of him. And if you are a fan of this franchise, or you remember going back to those days in the late 90s, early 2000s, that was one of the worst losses this franchise has had in a long time. And I know that for a lot of fans out there, you're probably like, how could you say that? We've had all these losses and building up losses over the last several years. That team was as good as any team I have ever seen from this franchise. as good. And yes, I understand they went to the back-to-back AFC Championship games in '09 and 10 under Rex Ryan. Those teams weren't as good as that team was in 1998. That team in 1998 looked like they were going to go all the way and finish it and win it all. And when you had Atlanta sitting there in the as the conference champion in the NFC, and the Jets had killed Atlanta earlier in the year, 28-3. The thought was, man, this team, if they're up 10-0 in the third quarter, if they find a way to hold on and win this game, they're good. They got a chance to win the whole thing. It felt like they were going to do that. Unfortunately, the 6 turnovers, the fumbles, everything that went wrong in that game, and that thing just turned sideways really, really fast. And the Broncos and John Elway went on to go to the Super Bowl, and of course destroy Atlanta in the Super Bowl. But that was, to me, one of the most painful losses I've ever seen, because it was that close to taking it all. And I love the fact that Aaron Glenn referenced that. I love the fact that it still burns inside of him. And he didn't mention it, but it kind of that loss that Detroit had, obviously when he was the defensive coordinator last year, in the NFC Championship game against San Francisco last year, in the 23-24 NFC Championship, reminded me of that one from '98. That's how bad that was. And I was thinking to myself, watching that for the Lions and 49ers thing, someone out there is watching this in Detroit thinking that they're going to go to the Super Bowl, and it's over, and it's not happening. And that's how painful that game was. So it was refreshing to see someone who has that connection to the past reference and saying, I don't want to have that kind of loss ever again. Now, let's go to this one. And these are the 2 things that really stood out to me. Let's take a listen to this.
Your process be like when you go meet with Aaron? I know you guys.
We've already texted Aaron, and me and Mougey are going to sit there and we're going to watch every game tape there is. And then we're going to look at the whole roster. This thing is not about Aaron Rodgers, folks. This is about the roster. We plan on building the best roster that we can. So whatever that may be, guard, tackle, defensive tackle, that's what we're evaluating.
The ultimatum on not only Aaron Rodgers, but also on himself, in which Aaron Glenn says that he is his own guy. He's not Bill Parcells. He's not Bill Belichick. He's just him, Aaron Glenn. I enjoyed hearing that, and he's really kind of willing to take it to the media a little bit, something that we haven't seen from a lot of past Jet coaches in recent years. And the fact that he says straight up, this isn't about one person. This is only about the full team. And that is a shot across the bow, of course, at Aaron Rodgers. And I know that he mentioned it several times that he is, in fact, he broke it up. He mentioned it in his opening statement. Didn't even take questions, saying, we're going to reach out to Aaron Rodgers, have reached out to him via text message, and we're going to have a meeting at some point in the near future about whether he fits this team or not. Now, before we get into that, when you talk about, yes, winning the press conference, absolutely. But it's all about the coaching staff and what this is going to look like. And now we're starting to see what this thing is going to look like as far as the staff is concerned. We know that Steve Wilks is going to be the defensive coordinator, has been in the league for a very, very long time, interim head coach in Carolina and head coach in Arizona. Didn't have success as a head coach, but a veteran coach who has been around a long time, well respected throughout the league, and has been a pretty good defensive coordinator. Now, there's been questions about why he was fired by San Francisco at the end of last season. They were a number 3 in the league unit in the NFL last year in 2023, and he took that unit and helped take that unit to a Super Bowl against Kansas City last year. So it's kind of surprising why he was fired. There was a lot of confusion over that. But generally speaking, Steve Wilks has been a very solid defensive coordinator and a solid assistant coach. That, on the surface, on paper, is a good hire. The hire, of Chris Bonho. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Chris Bonho, the special teams coach formerly of Denver, a guy who worked closely apparently with Mike Westhoff when he was there with the Broncos. He's now the special teams coach. I think there was discussion that maybe Westhoff would be in more of an advisory role with the Jets at some point. I think I read that in the last week or so. But Chris Bonho comes over as a special teams coordinator for the Jets. Okay, very interesting choice there. They're going to keep Sean Jefferson as the wide receivers coach, which is certainly kind of placates to someone like a Garrett Wilson who keeps demanding trades. At least that's the rumor anyway. And then we get to the more interesting, more important signings, and that, of course, being offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. Offensive coordinator is going to be Tanner Engstrand, formerly the passing game coordinator for the Detroit Lions, and the quarterback coach will be Charles London, who was a running backs coach for a better part of his career as a coach, and over the last 4 years now, has been the quarterback coach with Atlanta, Tennessee, and Seattle. So London is a hire that kind of worries me a little bit because he doesn't exactly have that experience with quarterbacks, and in each of those stops he has been fired in each of those cases. But the other addition the Jets made that is more intriguing is going to be the addition of Scott Turner as the passing game coordinator. Now, Turner's been around a long time. He's only 42, but he's been around a while in football. Obviously, he's the son of Norv Turner, former Redskins head coach. He is also he's been a quarterback's coach. He's been an offensive coordinator at several different stops. He's even had a stop in Michigan, but he has been around a while. And I think that's an interesting addition because it's very important for this Jets team to get the quarterback situation right. And you have two guys in Turner and Engelstrat who have that quarterback coaching experience. So this is a very interesting hire in my mind. The more interesting one, of course, being Engelstrat, who is now going to be taking over as offensive coordinator. He was the passing game coordinator in Detroit for the last couple of years. Ironically, it was also in the last couple of years when Detroit really got going as a football team in the last 2 years, in 2023 and 2024. And they were second in the league in passing this year. Now, I know a lot of people want to attribute that to Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Lions. A lot of people want to attribute that, obviously, to the players. But certainly Engelstrat played a role, and he is going to be now calling plays for the Jets, and this will be his first opportunity to call plays. Now, that could be either really good or it could be really bad. Now, we have seen the Jets roll with this before, where they've had the rookie head coach and the rookie offensive coordinator. We just saw that recently with Saleh and Mike LaFleur just in the last couple of years. We'll see what happens here with Engelstrat. On paper, it looks like a good hire, but of course, as we all know, once we get into the season and we start to see how this offense goes, we know how fans' feelings on these things can turn very sour very quickly. It's going to be very important now, with Engelstrat as the offensive coordinator, and I have Charles London as the quarterback coach, to really, and Aaron Glenn as head coach, for these guys to really hammer out what their plan is offensively and what they've envisioned this team will be offensively, not just for this year, but for the next couple of years after that as well. Because they are in a situation, and this leads to the bigger issue, they don't know who the quarterback is going to be. Is it going to be Aaron Rodgers? Is he really going to come back for a, 21st, 22nd season in the league at the age of 41 going on 42? Does he really want to come back and play for the Jets again? Granted, because right now this coaching staff and the way things are shaping up, there are no Green Bay guys on this staff right now. None. The Nathaniel Hackett's of the world are gone. Those guys are out of here. Does Aaron Rodgers really want to come back here? And that's what's going to be interesting to see here, because Aaron Glenn says that he is going to meet with Rodgers at some point. Would like to have an answer for him soon, I would imagine. They don't want to have this dragged out into March or into April with these long, ridiculous darkness retreats where he is smoking on a pipe with ayahuasca and doing a Netflix documentary at the same time. Enough with the drama. Let's find out whether he wants to play or not. And if he does want to play and wants to play here, certainly the Jets would be willing to welcome him back. And I think a lot of people would be willing to welcome him back, because you look at the free agent list at quarterback, it's not that great. It's nothing that stands out to you as far as that is concerned. Now, potentially Matthew Stafford could end up on that free agent list, but we'll see what happens with the Rams. And as they negotiate a contract, I would think Stafford will be back with the Rams in Los Angeles, but you never know. But right now, as it currently stands, the free agent list is nothing spectacular. You're talking about Sam Darnold right now being the top name out there in free agency. And let's be fair, Sam Darnold is not coming back to the Jets. He would be crazy to want to come back to New York. He would have to be insane, totally insane. He'll probably stay in Minnesota. If he doesn't stay in Minnesota, he'll probably end up with some other team in the Midwest like Indianapolis or, I don't know, somewhere else that's far away from New York as possible. That's probably the best thing for him. But as far as Rodgers is concerned, I think the things that are going to have to be determined is this. One, what is best for the Jets moving forward? What is best for Aaron Glenn and what's best for Rodgers? Now, he's going to have a cap hit of $23.5 million next year. And I believe there is a $35 million option bonus that has to be exercised before the season. And I think if they cut him at a certain point, I think it's like before June 1st, it's a $49 million cap hit or something like that. It's crazy. So they have to sit down and pare down that number big time. There's going to be a lot of deferred money. I'm talking like Shohei Ohtani deferred money. Okay, maybe not that crazy, but you get the idea. There's going to be a lot of deferred money in that kind of negotiation to see to spread that out and not kill the Jets over the next year or the next several years, as far as that salary cap is concerned. And then two, if you're Aaron Glenn, you want an assurance from Aaron Rodgers that one, Aaron Rodgers is committed to playing this year, and two, enough with the drama. Enough with the drama. Enough with the Netflix documentaries. Enough with, as I said, enough with the darkness retreats. Enough with the constant self-reflections on, the Pat McAfee show. Sure, it's entertaining for all of us as fans and as media. It's, something to gleam on and talk about. But for Aaron Glenn, who's coming from a, part of the Bill Parcells tree, and those guys do not like distractions in any which way, that will be fascinating to see whether Aaron Glenn is going to want to have to put up with that. And keep in mind, as I said, no Green Bay guys in his staff anymore. Is that something that's going to upset the apple cart as far as Rodgers is concerned? So I sit there and I wonder, perhaps the best thing for everybody is if the Jets just move on. That might be the best thing of all. Rodgers, I don't think, will retire. I think that he showed enough at the end of the year when he was starting to get really healthy that he still has something left. And certainly, if he is willing to work with Aaron Glenn and this coaching staff for a year, bring him back. But if he is not, let him go, negotiate the deal, whether he seeks a release, trade, whatever it is. Someone out there is going to be desperate enough to take him on and take on that resume and everything that's involved with him. But as far as the Jets are concerned, I think they have to start thinking about moving forward. I really do. I really believe that. And I know the names out there in free agency are not spectacular. They're not. But for a first-year coach in Aaron Glenn, a first-year general manager in Darren Mougey, you're trying to reestablish a new culture and a new identity. Do you really want to take on what was left over by the previous regime and their problems and their mistakes and everything that went on? I don't think so. So as I say that, you're talking about realistically guys like Justin Fields, Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston, Carson Wentz, Mac Jones, even Jarrett Stidham. Those are some of the names that are out there in free agency, and that's being realistic as far as the quarterback option is concerned. And I know that's not going to excite people. I know people are going to jump on here and say, why would you want Justin Fields over Aaron Rodgers? Why would you? It's not what I want. It's just what makes most sense financially and also from the standpoint of trying to change the culture and trying to move this franchise forward with a new regime. And there is no real great draft pick as far as quarterback is concerned in this year's draft. Maybe the Jets run with a late third-round pick on a Will Howard or a Kyle McCord out of Syracuse and Ohio State respectively and, see what happens there. But as far as starting under center in September, on September 7th or whenever the first day of the game of the regular season is, it's either Aaron Rodgers or it's one of those other guys that I mentioned. And when you think about the productivity, I mean, you take a look at their track record, they've shown that they can be decent enough to get you over the hump until you're able to really figure out what you want to be and what your identity is. And I know it's not exciting for fans to hear that. I know that you could sit here and say that's going to put some pressure on the coach and the GM moving forward into 2026, whether they would be under pressure anyway. Even if they kept Aaron Rodgers, the question would still be the same, saying, okay, what now? What now? So that's what's facing them moving forward right now. I'm really curious to see how this is going to work out. So, yes, winning the press conference, fantastic. He absolutely killed in the press conference. Now it's about putting together a football team and seeing how they can make this thing work and putting the pieces together that fit the personality of this head coach. And that's how you build a football team. It will not be easy. It won't be pretty at times, but that's how it's done. Hey, look, it took let's just use a couple of cases in point here, right? I'll go back to those teams in the late 90s. When Parcells came here to coach the Jets, he had to figure out which players were going to fit what he wanted. And a lot of guys didn't fit what he wanted. Okay? The Jets had a quarterback in Neil O'Donnell at the time, didn't fit what Parcells wanted. He bit the bullet and rolled with him for a year. They couldn't stand one another. And then when he was able to get rid of him, he did. Brought in Vinny Testaverde, and we all know what happened after that. They finally had someone to be their quarterback moving forward. And eventually, they would draft Chad Pennington, a couple of years later after that. It's about building the culture, establishing the culture, and getting the right guys that fit the system in the building. And that's what has to happen for Aaron Glenn, for Darren Mougey, and for the Jets franchise moving forward. Leave your thoughts below. We'll talk to you next time.